Joining us from Capitol Hill, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, Democrat from Rhode Island and member of the Judiciary Committee. Thanks for joining us this morning and giving us your time.
Thanks, Pedro. Good to be with you.
Your impressions of the case made by House Democrats so far?
Yesterday, I think, was a very good day for them. They had the chance to take all the evidence that has been developed through the course of their House hearings and marshal it into a sequential story that went from the very beginning through to the end of this scheme and its cover-up. And it's the first time I've seen it presented in that detailed and sequential a fashion, and I thought they did a very good job. Indeed, I was walking out of the Capitol with Senator Graham, and the two of us happened to bump into Adam Schiff on our way out, and both Lindsay and I, as former prosecutors, gave him a professional compliment on the good job that he had done. They did a good job yesterday, and the evidence was compelling.
Have you observed Senate Republicans during this process, and what do you think about how they're receiving this information?
Well, I think on the one hand, they're anxious about this information. It is certainly not the type of behavior anybody in the Senate expects in a president. But at the same time, they're also very anxious about consequences should they cross this president. They've watched their colleague Jeff Flake, they've watched their colleague Bob Corker have their careers ended after they crossed this president. And so they're a little bit between a rock and a hard place with the fear of the president and the drive of Mitch McConnell to make sure this is not a proper or fair trial on the one side, and this damning evidence and this inappropriate and corrupt behavior that they're going to be asked basically to vouchsafe on the other hand.
One of the themes that came out of yesterday was this idea of a witness swap. A lot of different tangents talking about it. Where do you stand on this idea, and what is it a viable one?
Well, it kind of cracks me up that here in the Senate, where the issue is quid pro quos, the Republicans want to come up with some kind of a witness quid pro quo. We have hundreds of years of experience with witnesses and when they're useful and when they should testify and when they should not. And it has nothing to do with quid pro quos. There isn't a trial in America where parties each get to pick their witnesses irrespective of their probative value, their relevance, on a kind of a one-off basis. You get one and I get one. No, you get to call the witnesses that will help prove your case. And you get to prove the witnesses that will help rebut the case if you're on the other side. And to steer away from that into some kind of smarmy quid pro quo deal, there's just no point to leave 200 years of American legal tradition for that, particularly in a case where smarmy quid pro quo deals are the actual gravamen of the offense.
Ultimately, next week after the White House presents its case and then questions from senators, what do you think will result from the topic if it's revisited on allowing witnesses, allowing new documents?
At this point, my guess is that the Republicans will vote to end these proceedings. It may take a little series of votes to work through that. And during the course of it, in order to pacify some of his Republican members, Mitch might schedule a few votes where a calculated small number of his members can vote no on something, but never in sufficient number to affect the outcome. We call that giving them a hall pass, and Mitch is a master at giving his Republican senators hall passes, no votes that don't affect the outcome. So that's my guess for where it goes. That's certainly my guess as to what Leader McConnell's intention is for where this goes.
You previously served as the Attorney General of Rhode Island. You may have seen a letter sent to the Senate from several attorneys generals, Republican in nature, about the nature of the case. I want to read you a portion of one of them, and this is from the letter. It says, Article 1, as it was described, does not identify any high crimes or misdemeanors committed by President Trump. Instead, it relies on the nebulous phrase abuse of power. While an indictable crime is not indispensable to establish a high crime or misdemeanor, the absence of such a crime, particularly under the facts of this particular impeachment, counsels great skepticism that the constitutional standard has been met. Well, how would you respond to that?
Well, first of all, if you study the constitutional law around what high crimes and misdemeanors are, I think these attorneys general are simply wrong. And it's no surprise that it's all Republican attorneys general. I think that's what you told me. But more importantly, if you look at what the abuse of power is, it actually is a criminal act. Because this is an impeachment and not a criminal trial, it's not charged as a criminal act. But if you go over to the federal criminal code and you look at what solicitation of a bribe is, all you have to do is recognize that a fake investigation of Trump's likeliest political rival, Joe Biden, by Ukraine is a thing of value to him. It's a thing of value to his campaign, and it's a thing of value to him. And if it's a thing of value, then it's a bribe, and him soliciting it, indeed trying to extort it, is that federal crime. It just isn't phrased that way because this is an impeachment, a congressional proceeding, not a criminal charge in a federal court.
Senator Whitehouse, it was a couple of days ago that Representative Jerry Nadler, in making his presentation, ended it by saying that if the Republican senators didn't agree to witnesses and the like, that they would participate in the cover-up. What did you think about, first of all, Representative Nadler's statement and how it impacted, or at least it resonated with your fellow senators?
Well, I think tempers and language were running a little high on both sides that first day. The opening bid by the White House describing the House manager's case as fraudulent, fraud being a crime, got us off to a bad start, and I think tempers ran a little bit high. I think the Chief Justice did the right thing, admonishing both sides to cool their jets a little bit and focus on the material. And I think yesterday went very well as a result. Of course, the White House didn't speak yesterday, so we don't know whether they have been affected by that admonishment, but certainly the House managers were all very much about their business and about presenting their case. And I thought as a result, the case went in very compellingly, and a lot of very damning evidence got effectively presented to the Senate.
So just quick follow-up, did it go too far then?
Did what?
Did Representative Nadler's statement go too far in your mind?
Well, I think on both sides there were things that probably on cooler reflection they might wish they had not said. But we've moved on from that, and I don't think assigning further blame is helpful.
So when you hear from the House or the White House team later on this week, what's your plan as far as taking in the information they present and how you sift through what they present?
Well, it'll be interesting. My guess is that their general strategy is going to be House bad, Democrats bad, grievance. They don't deserve a real trial. That's going to be kind of the arc of their presentation. And they're not going to engage very much in the actual offense that is charged, in the actual solicitation of a fake investigation with the extortive power of all of that military aid behind the solicitation. I think that they're probably just going to mount an attack on the House managers and on the process. And I think in the course of that, it's important to test what they're saying about what the House did and what impeachments should be against reality, because I think they've made up quite a lot during the course of what they've said so far.
Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, Democrat from Rhode Island, a member of the Judiciary Committee, joining us this morning to talk about the impeachment process. Thank you for your time this morning, sir.
Good to be with you, sir.